Um, for this presentation, I'm gonna present the products that we use in our daily life and that with there's like bad designs here. So for the basic workflow I'm gonna cover in this presentation, I will first identify the different interface with its bad usability, like bad designs. Then I will explain why this is a bad design by relating the problem to the HCI principles and the guidelines. At last, I will provide like concrete recommendations and as like how the design issue could be solved by properly applying the relevant HCI principle and guidelines. So for the first bad design, I'm gonna talk about it's a page that is from the premp. So basically from that page, you can see it is to provide the feedback for the users, and it actually uses a star rating system to use a star rating for evaluate like the problem solving and the communication skills for the peers. While this is a common method, it does not provide like very detailed feedback. Therefore, it could lead to a lack of the specificity in the improvement areas. And the people who got the feedback, like they will probably like need to like guess about like what action they have take and the consequence of doing so. So for the recommendations for this improvement, I will do like below the each star rating row, I will implement a structured input field or questions that can guide users to give specific feedback on different aspects of the peer's performance, such as giving a text box below the each star rating and let user and input and explain the reason for the rating, and so therefore can give like more concrete feedback for the peer. So from this system can just like constrain user to provide feedback in a more organized and focused manner, and that is also aligned with Norman's principle of constraints. So for the second bad design I'm gonna talk about is pay and transfer page from the Bank of America. So from this page, we can see like there is a more activity button here that it is not very clear about like if the button will expand the transaction history in place or take the user to a new screen. So which will lead to a confusion about this function's like real functionality, this button's real functionality. So this is related to Norman's principle of visibility, because the principle actually suggests that the system should make all needed options and materials visible to the users. So the more activity button could be made like more visible and more indicative of like what this button is really doing here. For the recommendations, for the improvement, I will consider to provide like clear labeling or icons that can indicate like what will happen when more activity is pressed. For example, I will put like an icon that can suggest like the expansion, like the list will extend like on the current page by pressing the more activity button. Or I will also consider to use like an arrow for like that can like suggest for the navigation to a new page. And from doing that, that is also aligned with Norman's principle of visibility. And so for the third bad design I'm going to talk about, it's a Microsoft star page. So from this star page, we can see like it has like many sections of the news, like they are kind of like arranged like very randomly here. So it's kind of like very will get like users very overwhelming when they are like really looking for like some specific information, like specific like news here. Like the top story section is played like below a very large content card, which might imply like this top story section is like a less important one. And they're also like the same size of the content card that's like that is like some news, but that is like the same size of the top stories. So the top story should be placed in a like more prominent way. And this is related to Nielsen's heuristic of aesthetic and minimalist design. This page should not contain information which is irrelevant or rarely needed. For example, there are like some very random news that is like not very popular, but they are placed as like the same position as the top story, top news. So the current layout does not prioritize the information effectively, especially for the top stories section. And that will potentially lead to user frustration as they kind of like going through and looking for the top news, top story they are most interested in. So for my recommendations for the improvement, I will consider to improve the content hierarchy. So I will adjust like the layout to create like a clearer visual hierarchy. Like the top stories should be more prominent on the page to reflect their importance. For example, I will consider to put like the top story in like a larger content card on the top, and for some like less important information, it should be like smaller or placed lower on the page. So for example, for some like some news card, I will consider it to be like more smaller and put it like below the top stories content card. And from doing that, we are actually applying Norman's principle of visibility to adjust the layout to highlight the top stories and make it like more prominent to make the users can much easier to find it. And thanks for listening to my presentation. That's all about my thinking and reflection on the bad designs cases in our real life, and hope you enjoy it.